The director of the UK's Hepatitis Foundation.
Thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
You need to turn this to your
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay.
Put this in your pocket.
Thank you. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think the best thing to try and do here is to make this much more personalised. So I'm going to sort of try and climb into the audience and audit risks and situations out here. What I'm wondering, first of all, who has had a hepatitis B vaccination in the room? Hands up. Whoa, I'm very impressed. Who knows whether the vaccination is working? Less than half of you. Right, so the first thing you need to understand is that there is a blood test that explains whether your vaccination is protecting you. And the last call on the national helpline was a doctor who's now chronically Hep B positive because he forgot to check his vaccination score. Okay? Now, a vaccination score is counted up in international units per milliliter of blood. That's IU/ml. So you need over 100 is the gold standard. So if you've been vaccinated, go back to your GP, demand to know whether or not you're safe. Quite simple. Very often the people who've been vaccinated have done so because they're at higher risk. And rather like another caller, a police constable who's just finished having his liver cancer removed, again, vaccinated but didn't know it wasn't working. So there are many, many problems like this. What I'm also wondering as I'm looking at this audience is, let's do a little risk assessment now. Is there anyone who is from Asia, Africa, Middle East, Eastern Europe or South America? Anyone from those areas? Yourself, 1, 2. Right, well both of you and yourself, yeah, right. Well, a very simple statement. You are at a 1 in 50 risk of Hep B infection. That's the way the cookie crumbles. The most important thing to understand about hepatitis B is that 1 in 4 humans on Earth catch it. That's 2 billion humans. It is just about the most serious infectious threat. Now, in more than half the world, more than half the people catch it. If you go sub-Saharan Africa, it's about 70% of humans catch Hep B. If you go the entire Pacific Rim, it's again about 70% of humans catch Hep B. So if ever you come across someone from any of those areas, you're looking at someone who has a 1 in 50 risk of carrying chronic Hep B. Ours are one of the few borders that don't safety check you. You can walk straight into England, as 10 million endemic area survivors have, and not get tested. In fact, they're arriving in a country that always has no public advice for hepatitis B or C anywhere. You imagine, whole of Europe, you cannot send your child to school without proof that the Hep B vaccination is working. You go to Canada, you're not allowed a tattoo or a piercing. How many people in this room have had tattoos or piercing? Did they tell you before your tattoo or piercing that you are not allowed to give blood for 12 months because you are now at such high risk of having hepatitis? Good, I'm glad. Yeah. It's very important to realise that across the UK, piercing guns are our #1 risk. They're as clean as a child using them, usually 18-year-old. Hep B will live on the needle for 28 days. It can go through up to 100 people. It will infect 1 in 3 of them. Okay. Moving beyond areas, let's just work with professions. At the foundation, we get calls regularly from about 24 industries that employ about 2 million people who work with blood. Almost none of these people have been advised of their risk. Starting with St John Ambulance. 20,000 people messing around with blood unvaccinated, and they teach the rest of us. My charity has 3 chronically infected hepatitis B ex-St John staff working for us. They do a course 50,000 times a year. I have 2 course trainees chronically infected with hepatitis B. None of these people are vaccinated. So is there anyone here who works, and I'm giving you a list now, anyone who works in the caring profession, the security profession, the cleaning profession, the beauty profession? Any of those areas? Right. You all need hepatitis B vaccinations quite quickly. I am snowed under with people from those professions who are coming up Hep B positive. I had a child coordinator in Great Ormond Street just gone positive, chronic. I've had a cleaner, funnily enough, in Brighton, just gone chronic. He's a toilet cleaner, and he's just gone chronic as well. Again, blood, wounds. Have you seen Match of the Day? Yeah, I'm sure. From 1990, when they began it, I think 91 or 92 they began that, Premiership Blood Hygiene. It is the only place in England where you will see the proper precautions in action. Think about your children at school. There is no green man runs with bandages for them. There isn't a foreign footballer who would come here and play with a bloody shirt or an open wound. I had a school in Uxbridge in England. The children there were playing Pirates of the Caribbean, a compass. Except one little boy, Afghani, had Hep B. His compass, every 3 pricks, acute hepatitis B infection. The whole school needed testing. There was another school in Ealing. 5 girls, 1 class, chronic Hep B. Clusters. We have just bullied, well, we didn't really bully, but the Health Protection Agency finally did a little bit, and it is a pitiful amount of Hep B testing that happens in this country. We're just about the most untested country on earth. France did more testing in 2002 than we did in the noughties. It gives you an idea of where we're going. But what you're looking at is, in the last 4 years, the testing in UK hospitals shows that 1.65% of our country is now chronically infected with Hep B. Huge numbers. We're tabling to Parliament at the moment that infections have tripled in the last about 15, 20 years. We are up to 511,000 and booming at a rate of about 20,000 a year. Onward, onward, onward. And nobody is getting vaccinated. Now, our children, you know, every time I have to explain to a child that you have chronic hepatitis B on the helpline, it's a heartbreaking, you know, what on earth? You know, you're in the only country that couldn't be bothered to protect you. It is a nightmare. We have a completely effective vaccination for this problem. And in particular, for your Asia, Africa, Eastern European communities, it is urgent that you protect your children. Do not delay. They are schooling with undiagnosed chronic hepatitis B. It's a guarantee. According to the figures from the Health Protection Agency, we found that 0.7% of UK children currently carry chronic hepatitis B. That's 1 in 140 children in the country have Hep B. I think that figure is inflated because it's a hospital figure. A 0.7% reading from our wards may well mean more like a 0.3% actual infectious ratio across our schools, which means 1 in 300 children in the UK, 60,000 children, is undiagnosed and infectious and at school. There is a reason why 197 countries vaccinate children at birth. I hope you're beginning to see that now. We've lost a generation, principally migrants. These are the people that have come here expecting first world healthcare and missed the very vaccinations their own nation states are rolling out. In April, even the president of Somalia said, yippee, we're vaccinating every one of our babies at last. They have access to first world healthcare. But we don't. Your children don't. And we're pushing through an early day motion in the Commons. We're asking it to get tabled on Thursday to try and expedite this protection before any more thousands of children catch chronic hepatitis B. We tested in Liverpool amongst Somali community children. We found the under 5s, 8.7% of them were catching Hep B. That was in 2002, and we've done next to nothing since. So there's a lot of concern that we haven't understood how easy this is to get. Now, globally, there are two transmission routes which we tend never to mention in the UK, but they are the bulk of transmissions. The first one is healthcare. Not many people realise, but in the noughties, reused injections, medical injections alone, infected about 1 in 100 humans with hepatitis B or C. So, if you're going to Africa, Asia on holiday, the tetanus shot could give you Hep B. The Delhi Belly Buscopan shot could give you Hep B. These are the most two common injections when you travel. And you cannot guarantee that they are free from infection. So, vaccination is extremely effective. 3 quick shots. And you can do them accelerated over 21 days. It's important to realise this vaccine is what we call a dead vaccine. You're not infecting yourself with a little bit of Hep B and hoping for an immune response. What you're doing is just filling yourself with antibodies. Okay? So the most, over the last 4 years of several thousand vaccinations personally dealt with, you get a little heating up going. And that's about it. Yeast and egg, the preservatives in vaccines, are actually the reason why the majority of adverse events occur. And I do recommend to parents of children, check to see if there's a yeast or an egg allergy. In the first week of life, a Marmite soldier or something is worth it. So I have seen a brain damaged child who was yeast allergic to a vaccine, and one is one too many. But it is important to understand how these things operate. Moving on from there, in terms of what we do as an organisation, we train everybody to be what we call Hep B positive. This is an overcomable, manageable problem. And it's important to strip away from it all the stigma. Don't talk sex, don't talk drugs. Realise where it comes from, healthcare and childhood. 2 billion people have caught this, mainly in those two routes. And that's why, how many NHS workers have we got here? Right, so it's about a new lexicon. I'm tired of dealing with suicide attempts and actual suicides on the basis of this one line, 100 times more infectious than HIV. This is complete nonsense. It's 100 times more infectious in a transfusion. You see the difference? It's a little clivia, isn't it? But it's 100 times. So basically, you could be with a partner for 7-8 years, and 3 out of 5 people that ring the helpline are with their partner and uninfected after 7 or 8 years, and many babies. But one sharing of that razor blade will be a serious risk. So it's to understand where the risk lies. A lot of people ring the helpline and say, I never ran a risk. I say, well, did you go in public places without plasters in your bag? You run a risk. Never occurred to us. Any gateway wound in a public place is dangerous. That's the lesson of Match of the Day. Premiership, blood hygiene. To use gloves and scrubs and regular plastering, yes.
Do surgeons get Hep B as a natural?
25% of Nigerian surgeons tested chronically positive for hepatitis B in Lagos. We are kind of snowed under at the moment with calls from NHS staff with Hep B. I would imagine that we are looking at a percentage. It's very, very important to realise that the staff take tenofovir. We give them tenofovir and then they carry on. We remove, and it's so important. I'm constantly turning around nurses and doctors, I've got one in Canterbury who's quit nursing. I've got to get them back into it on tenofovir. I've got 4 or 5 on the books right now. The problem with the tidal wave of kind of infections is that we bring people to the UK, we give them 3 shots, but we often don't test them for Hep B. A nurse has to request a Hep B test. I've dealt with 3 dying nurses with cancer. They all died, unfortunately. And I've got the one policeman in, recovery, a 5-year, 1% chance of survival. But in America, our sister charity, the Hep B Organisation America, they invented the vaccine and discovered this virus. Barack Bloomberg, wonderful man, unfortunately died recently. But, I miss having him to talk to. But what we're looking at, they know a nurse dies every day of Hep B in America. What we don't know is that a worker with blood dies every day in England. We just are not counting And this is my deep, deep concern that police officers, nurses, healthcare workers, when you quit, you desperately need Hep B C safety tests.
What about patients that have been contacted?
Excuse me, sorry, there's going to be question and answer section.
Sure. I think they're getting going. I don't know if we want to bring everyone back on board and do this perhaps. What's the timing like now? Is that more?
Yeah, you've got another.
Okay, then I'll roll around with questions if that's okay. Yes.
Can I just clarify with you?
Yeah.
The nurses and doctors that you're talking about, they're infected.
Yeah.
Are they definitely infected in this country from the healthcare that they have undertaken?
No. I would say the vast majority, we've rehabilitated, I think, about 40 Filipino nurses who are Hep B positive. In their own country, they're not allowed to work. We bring them to the UK, we put them through occupational health, we get them undetectable on drugs, and they've got their career back. And they're here and they're saving our lives. And they are no risk whatsoever to us. There are one or two infections, but the majority of staff are vaccinated.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that in the room.
Well, what happens is we are dealing with some staff that catch it here. And they're the ones that have done the 3 vaccination shots and got no immunity. And then, of course, they're really in danger because they're playing around thinking they're immune. And actually, they're not. You see what I mean? So, the whole point of our organisation really is to train our patients to be positive. We teach them that, you know, it's a very easy to manage condition if you catch it in time. So the golden rule is either you've audited your status and know what your liver's about, or there's a huge risk. So we get people tested. If they're diagnosed, we walk them through their results. We teach them the right sort of diet. We explain to them how to adhere to the medicine, which is quite a process. As the doctors were mentioning, if only 1 out of 3 vaccinations get done, we've got a serious problem. And when you're looking at someone needing a pill every day to remain immune or undetectable, and it needs to be an adherence that goes on for the rest of life at this time, you can see why there's a need for deep education. We find that when patients understand their liver readings and can see what the tenofovir is actually doing, when they understand their viral load and they can watch it dropping down, they get much more buy-in. You know, because very often we're giving hepatitis patients medicines where they didn't feel ill and they don't feel any better. So it's very hard to adhere that this is life and death important, to keep taking that and taking that. The other thing is, it's a really positive message. I mean, we are blessed at the moment with an antiviral kind of revolution that is making almost anything possible. 10 years ago, we couldn't really cure hepatitis C, and now I think we're up to 80% clearance rates. I've had 3 people even clear the surface antigen of hepatitis B in the last 4 years. It can happen. And that will get better. The next generation, and Gilead have asked me not to explain what they've got in the cooker, but it's twice as good as what we've got now. The drugs that are coming are so good. The last NICE meeting, we thought there's no point meeting until we've got the new drugs on the table. So that opportunity is there as well. But most of all, I think the key thing with hepatitis B is learn about this problem. It's becoming ever more common. I mean, we had a lot of athletes for the Olympics that were getting vaccinated to come to London because it's so infected. Yet the very place, Newham Borough, is 3% positive for Hep B, and nobody in Newham knows. So we've got this kind of lack of awareness, lack of resilience. And in terms of risk groups, yes, you know, there are certain obvious ones. If you inject drugs, you need to get vaccinated. But having said that, my last 3 infections were a diabetic family. The father had Hep B and was given diabetic needles. Lack of training, the whole family have now got Hep B. So you actually need to vaccinate everyone who's anywhere near needles, because they are that good at transmitting Hep B. Beyond that, gay people, I'm on a bit of a mission with that group, everyone should be vaccinated. There's an important reason why, is because gay sex, anal sex, your nose and your bum have the thinnest skin in your body. And your skin is what is the immunity barrier against hepatitis B. So to be aware of that. Beyond that though, do understand the 2 types of Hep B, and I forgot which doctor brought that up, but we had the E antigen, which is yourself, and we've got the surface antigen. Now up to 80% of patients have got rid of the E antigen. When you get rid of the E antigen, you go low risk. And it's important to know that. It's incredible how many patients are diagnosed with Hep B and they're wandering around thinking they're super carriers. One kiss will kill granny. And in fact, they've got tiny loads that will not be moving over into other bodily fluids. And this is incredibly important to quality of life. I'm consistently telling patients, look, this is the one with the vaccine. This is not the one 100 times worse than HIV. This is the one with the vaccine. You can have your children, you can have your wife, you can have your health. All you have to do is know about it in time and then study a liver-friendly lifestyle. And this is perhaps the last area that I wanted to really stress, is we haven't learned enough about our livers. Our livers eat everything and make us. And the science of that, I'm not sure we'll ever really understand how the liver manages to do this miracle every day and keep us going. It's a record of everything you've drunk and everything you've ate. And once you get a hepatitis infection, you can actually learn enough to live longer. I'm constantly telling my patients, look, you don't drink, you don't take any drugs, your liver readings are fantastic. Right now, you're going to be living longer than the average that do certain other toxic things wrong. If it's kind of leading us into this purity, we've got to see it as also something of a bonus, something of a blessing. So these are my thoughts about hepatitis B. I do stress, if you're in any of those occupations, get vaccinated. If you travel to any of those places, get vaccinated. And if you have children in multicultural schools, get them vaccinated too. Always remember, a child is 20 times more likely to become infected than an adult. And that's why, all over the world, they're protected. It's that simple an equation. Thank you very much.